So they say everything's an illusion, right? Like we see walls and chairs and tables, right? So we see these walls, these chairs, these tables, but they say everything's energy, really. Atoms, electrons, protons, neutrons, you know. So like, everything here is like literally like energy, like electricity running through everything. So I looked up on the web and it said, this one thing said that, it said electricity moves through copper at like 90-something% the speed of light, right? So, okay. So if an electron is in free space, right? Now, one that's weird, ain't it? See, because I was thinking, if this is all energy, I was thinking, what are we? We're the memory cells of God. We're the memory cells of some kind of like, like if you could imagine that, everybody says you can always everybody can grasp, things can get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? But they can get smaller and smaller and smaller. And people can't grasp the smaller and smaller, but no matter what you do, if you open something up, you can always cut it in half as many times. Just if you could, you'd have to shrink with it. So like, no matter, there's never going to be a point where it's nothing, right? But that doesn't make sense. People think if you get down to a certain measurement that there'll be nothing left. Wow, it's like, wow. So, man, it's hard to grasp that idea, right? Imagine like you see these movies and they call them the quantum realm, where when they shrink themselves real small, they call it the quantum realm. But why can't you just keep on taking? So you take so say you took an apple, right? And you cut the apple in half, and you kept on and take one of the pieces and cut that in half, and cut that in half, and cut. Wow. Huh. I wonder what the best science says about that. That you could always get smaller, but so even if you can't cut something to make it smaller, why? Well, then there'd be a limit to how small anything can be. So I wonder if you could. That's the weirdest thing, man. 'Cause it's like at the point where something can't get any smaller, it just goes away. Think about it. Like, wow, dude. It's like, if you think about it, it's like, damn, like, what happens if, so like, wow, it's crazy, right? So I'm just sitting there watching Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy. I was watching Eddie Murphy from like 1997. It's free on demand. This thing Raw, where he does this comedy and it's like a lot of cussing and stuff. It's crazy, right? Oh, this is a classic, right? For adults, it's cussing and stuff. But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, for some reason I'm like, we must be the memory cells of some larger being. Because, you can grasp what happens. So I'm looking up and I'm like, well, how fast do electrons move? Electrons are what makes up electricity. So if electrons in the atoms that make the matter that we're made of can move almost the speed of light, what would you do if you had what if there was atoms that were smaller? So you take the size of an electron and imagine that electron being the size of the universe. Inside of that, compared to us, there's electrons inside of that, right? So, damn. Because if there was atoms that were, so okay, we're gonna take this. We say the universe, are atoms. The universe, the atoms were made from. All of a sudden, the atoms were made from become the universe, and then there's another atom. There's electrons inside of that. The thing is, on our scale, it would move a lot faster, but it's got that much more distance to cover. So those electrons would still move at the same distance. They would move faster, but they would move at the same distance as our atoms. And if you took so you go universe. So our electrons is a universe, and you have electrons the size of the ones that are in our atoms inside of that universe. So then our universe is an atom as well as our universe is an electron. And imagine that electron in a existence where it's the same difference to our universe, right? Well, they would all move at the same distance, because although the one's smaller, it's got to make up all that different. It's got to move through a lot more. It's got to move through a lot further distance. And then the larger one would move slower, but it would still only be able to move a certain distance, because it's bigger, right? So imagine electrons that are super small, super big, and we're in the middle, but they all move the same distance at once, right? And because the smaller ones can move faster, but they have to make up the space. Ours move at the speed that ours move, and then the bigger one moves too, but it goes a lot slower, but it still stays in pace. So now we know how big the universe is, and we know how small the atomic structures that are subatomic to our atoms are as well. Because all you have to do is do the math, and you figure out how fast our electrons move. Do the math to how small those electrons, because each and every single electron that exists in what we know as our universe is a universe itself, with electrons the size of our electrons inside of our universe. And but if you do these calculations of our electrons, you can figure out how big the universe is. You could also figure out how small, the next level down from us atomic structures there are. And then I'm thinking, well, so those electrons are all moving the same distance at the same time. Although one's faster, one's slower, we're in the middle, but they still the distance and everything. So they're moving at the same distance. So if we're the memory, so hold on. So we take these universes, which are the electrons and electricity in our brains, and so we're like the intelligence part of a larger being. And then inside of our electrons are electrons that make up another universe with people in that, with their electrons that make up our intelligence. So it's a continuous line. It's a continuous line from smaller to bigger, and life forms like us are we're the intelligence. We're the memory cells. We're like and think about it, because how could God live forever? How could this being live forever? How can it survive? In a real natural world, a natural universe, how could it survive? Well, if its memory cells were stuck in one place, then it would just be, So all the intelligent life forms, and not just the intelligent life forms, because sometimes God wants to think like an animal, So as the electrons pass through animals and life forms, and they're spread out all throughout trillions and trillions all spread out in all different spots all over the universe, so that not one little accident can wipe out its memory. And then it's also infinite smaller and bigger as well. Because this is all energy. It's energy all around us. And if they're moving at the same, they're moving the same distance at the same time, they all meld together. That made no sense whatsoever, did it? Yo, I got electrons in my brain smaller than you think, you insane. But it gets bigger like the universe since the curse to the man, because he don't understand what's going on. He sees a flat wall, but it's electrons spinning, energy all around. Understand the town, the sound. Complicate my mind with the inner state of demolitions, complications.